Hello, everyone. So happy to see your beautiful faces today. Thank you so much for joining me for our live webinar. So grateful to see you guys. Ash, you're so funny. So for those of you that haven't done a practice like this with me before, a learning space like this with me before, we generally do cameras on if possible, and please feel free to interact in the chat and add comments and feedback and things that are coming up for you throughout this information. I'm super stoked to be able to go over this topic with you guys, because this is a near and dear one to my heart and soul. I feel like this topic of negative self-talk is getting more and more incredibly important as we move throughout our interesting new adjustment to the way society is as it continues to evolve and grow. So thank you guys again for just being here, for showing up, for taking time out of your day to be present for this. And let's get started. So I'm going to screen share with you guys for this webinar so that you guys can see a visual of what we're talking about here. Again, please feel free to go off in the chat, contribute anything that hits home, any questions you have. And if you have any specific questions that I feel like would be valuable, I might invite you in to unmute yourself and, kind of go back and forth a little, especially if there's an opportunity here to kind of do some live coaching as well. So love to have that chance to work with you guys on that. So negative self-talk, we all got it. We all got it. And it's kind of like the silent killer. I posted this beautiful message that Ash sent us in the community the other day. I can't even find it right now, but it was so powerful. Oh, here it is. It was like a long realization of something that she experienced, but at the bottom she said, "My tears the whole drive home. It was so good and cleansing and healing. Negative self-talk is a silent killer, and I'm grateful that I get to shed that shit." And so when she said negative self-talk is a silent killer, it really hit me, because I was like, wow, I didn't really realize the validity of that concept until she said it in that way. We're sitting a lot of times in our own space, in our own mind's eye, spinning out on our own internal dialogue. Like every second of the day, we're having a full-blown conversation with ourselves, regardless of the interaction we're having with the outside world. And that conversation with ourselves impacts every single area of our life. The way that we show up, the way that we interact with others, the confidence that we have, our self-esteem, et cetera, et cetera. So seriously, this is what a topic. Yes, monkey mind, Savi. So the way we talk to ourselves shapes the way we interact with the world around us and has an incredible impact on our mental and physical health. Join this webinar as we look to better understand the source of our negative self-talk patterns and how we look into building a healthier and kinder bond with the most important person in your life. So let's get started. Introduction. So most of you are already in our community, but for those of you that aren't, my name is Ashley, and I do one-on-one coaching, and I work a lot in the transformational work through mind, body, soul. I lead 200-hour yoga, meditation, breathwork teacher trainings for people that are trying to expand and lead this work as well. I also have my master trainers in NLP degree. I'm a yoga therapist, and teach and lead meditation for prisons, for private clients, for corporate settings, et cetera, et cetera. So I live and breathe the work, if you will. In our community, we call it the work, and the work really just means self-awareness. It means growing, it means taking accountability, and it means leaning into this thought and this idea is that, yes, while we're all doing the best we can, every single one of us could be doing better than we're doing right now. And because of that hunger for growth and to evolve the version of who we are now, it drives us and it creates ambition within our heart and spirit to learn and to grow, because as humans, we're always evolving. There's no 2 days in your life that will ever be the same. And so the more you can take accountability for your patterning and your habits and the way you show up in the world, the better the world is going to be. So that's who I am. And we'll just start with a little grounding. I know some of you are like driving and working and like co-doing things. But if you do have a moment just to ground with us, I think it would make your day that much better and your ability to receive the information that much better. So wherever you are, just kind of find a tall seat. If you're driving, keep your eyes open. If you're not, go ahead and close them. And just relax your shoulders. And take a big breath in and let it go. So the way we feel with our body impacts the entire experience we have of reality. And our nervous system is constantly combating the world around us between stimulation and overwhelm and a constant of centeredness. So right now, just call in that centeredness to be a part of your being so you can be receptive to all the information you're about to hear and open to hearing something new that you maybe don't already know. Again, breathing in and exhale. And then at a time, you can just blink your eyes open, finding yourself back here in our space together. Just maybe feeling a little different than before. I know for me, my morning was like, go, go, go. We had our indoor cycle class, and then I drove out to Malibu. I'm at Soho House right now. I did a class for Aloe. And then there's like people walking by me, definitely looking at me like, you're not supposed to be on calls here. And somehow I got the waiter to like approve of me being on a call because everyone here needs to hear this information. Lord, it's like being aware and kind sometimes gives you the opportunity to be like almost a mass manipulator because you can get your way when you're really nice. You know, you feel me? Okay. I want to share with you guys my negative self-talk. And the reason why is like, let's level the playing field. Like we're all in this work together and there's so much growth to happen, but the growth doesn't happen unless we're aware and we claim that we're not perfect, that we don't have it figured out. So no matter how long I've been in this work and doing this work, I'm going to tell you about my negative self-talk. Here are the stories I run. First one, what I do will never be enough. This is deep mother wound for me. I had the experience of like everything that I did, my mom would give me a better way to do it. So while I know she was caring and always wanted to help support me in growing, there was always like, there was never like, wow, I'm really proud of you. Or there was never just like, oh, that's great. Or I see you. It was always, here's something else. So a lot of times what that creates is the thought that I'm doing something wrong. And so a lot of times when I have interactions in my current relationships now, someone would say something that literally has nothing to do with it. And I'm like, oh my God, they're making me wrong right now. I need to defend myself. When it's just like, oh, like we're having a normal conversation. And if I don't catch that self-talk of like, I'm making myself wrong for something that's not even happening, then I go into a spiral. And then I'm in that spiral and it's really hard to pull myself out of it. So, and then the next thing is they will think I don't know what I'm talking about. So maybe sounding stupid or not qualified or not fully stacked up with information, not having all the answers. That's some negative self-talk that I've run. And then the last one I have on here is, are they mad at me? And that comes from my previous attachment style. I used to be really anxious, well, disorganized attachment style, but I used to be really anxious attached. So if someone was not responding in the way I wanted them to, I'd be like, oh my God, are you okay? Is everything okay? Are you mad at me? Like, are we good? And so I even see it coming up now in my relationship sometimes when, when you're texting someone and like, of course you can't understand anything over text and someone responds with something curt or short. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? So that piece that's part of my self-talk. So I just want to emphasize that we all have it. Right? Like we all have this. And it's not about, do you have it or do you not? You guys are so bad. It's how do you manage it? That's the only thing that makes one person successful in being right with themselves, being happy with themselves over someone else. It's not that one person has to figure it out. It's that they've strengthened the ability to manage the way that they speak to themselves, the way they interact with themselves. Okay. Oh, it's 11:11. Make a wish. Unless you're in New York, make a wish 3 hours ago. Okay. If you by chance have a pen and paper nearby, please do this. If you don't, I want you to just think about it. What are 5 negative things that you say to yourself on a regular basis that you're like, I do this all the time? And guess what? You get to be radically honest because I'm not checking homework today. You can just sit there and write whatever makes sense to you, whatever you can like really be truthful in your life and in your heart, and really just sit down with, what is the story I run in my mind? Even if you know it's not true, Because guess what? Negative self-talk is not logical. That shit's all over the place. You're like, how is it even possible that I crafted this in my mind right now? Like, how could I even talk to myself this way? What is the thing that you say to yourself over and over and over? And I'll give you guys, 2 minutes to just free write as fast as you can. The grammar doesn't have to be correct. It doesn't have to look good. You don't have to write in perfect letters. Just freaking scribble. Get it down. Get it out of your mind and onto paper, or have it in your mind, but bring it to the forefront of your mind so you've got awareness. By the way, I had a lot of fun doing this deck because having to write my negative self-talk out on paper was really eye-opening for me. Even though I know it, I was like, damn, that shit shows up a lot. Okay, I'll own that. I can own that. Y'all looking so radiant today. So do like another 45 seconds or so to just think it through. And I always encourage that radical honesty. And just starting to finish up the thought that you're on. And if you've got more, you have the rest of your life to do this exercise. And it would be really beneficial for your life to make sure that you actually do it. Because the more you're aware, the more empowered you are to shift. But damn, does it feel good to pretend like we're not aware? Just to numb out and be like, well, it's okay, I got it. We're good. I'm just gonna let that be there. I know, the cop-outs, they feel real nice for the moment, but long-term, we're like, ah. Okay, any brave souls want to share like one or two? You can unmute yourself. Yeah, Neela.
I think a really big one that comes up for me often is I'm too old to reach the dreams that I strive for or that I want. Like
You're
passed
too
my
old,
mark.
you said?
Yeah, like I'm already too old. I'm never gonna get there.
Right, that ship has sailed, huh?
Yeah, that ship has sailed. That's a really big one for me.
Thanks for sharing. Super vulnerable. And like, we're going to talk about how to really pick that apart. But at the end of the day, like, I'm pretty sure Mel Robbins was like 40 when she was in her darkest place. And then after that, now she's like changing people's lives every second that she breathes. So we already know that that's not true. But thank you for just participating in this option to play in our fantasy world where we believe our bullshit. Anyone else? Any other brave souls? You want to share your negative thought? Lee.
Yeah, I'll share. Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I could actually come meet you at Soho, Malibu, but I'm
Hey.
kidding, I'm working. But I think the 3 top ones for me are, it rotates between I'm not enough, I'm way too much, and I don't know how to take care of myself.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And of course. And it's crazy because the not enough and too much is literally just an indication that our authentic self wasn't honored in our upbringing. Like we were told to be something different. So we didn't know how to trust ourselves. And that's how it's revealed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something, thank God, healing is available, that we can like start to unpack that. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on. Common types of negative self-talk. I wanted to go over these with you because I was so mind blown when researching this for you guys. Filtering is one of them, where it's like you zoom in on something negative, where like so many amazing things could be happening for you, but yet you just focus on the one thing that's not going away, or the one thing that is challenging you or making you feel some type of way. That's a type of negative self-talk. Personalizing, meaning something happens and you make it about you. Like, why is this happening to me? You're like, I'm at fault. I'm the one that's wrong, and you blame yourself. Catastrophizing, you automatically anticipate the worst. And that's like that comes up really big with people. You guys are so funny in the chat with people that maybe are like, oh, I don't want to go after this because then I'll fail or this will happen or bad will happen, right? That's catastrophizing. And then polarizing is like good or bad. There's nothing in the middle. My partner is really good at this. Like either he's like all in on you or he's like super judgmental of you. And I'm like, you're fun. So we work through that a lot. That's fun. I love seeing him. He's actually growing so much right now. And it's cool to see him change his mind on things that I saw him so black or white on, that it's like, I'm like, oh, so there is a gray area. Got it. That's fun. Let's work through that together. Okay, you guys, this was also amazing. Examples of destructive, negative self-talk. All or nothing thinking, right? Like I have to do this or I'm going to be a failure. Do this or this. Qualifying the positives. So you know when you talk to people, or maybe this is you, and someone's like, well, look at this, and then there's this, and you're like, yeah, but no, but no. And like you don't actually take those things into consideration as a possibility to impact your life positively or to negate some of the things that you're navigating. Negative self-labeling. So, right, I'm not enough, or I'm too much, right, Lee, or I'm a failure, or I'll never be smart enough, things like that, where you negatively label yourself. You talk negative to yourself. Catastrophizing, we learned about that on the last one. It's just all going to be bad. It's all going to go bad. It's never going to be good. With total, like, it's so fair and valid. But one of my best friends right now, she's 37 weeks pregnant, and she's like having such a hard time with what's going to happen. So she's like, oh my God, we're C-section, and there's all, there's like so much catastrophizing in her language right now because she's so fearful. And again, it's totally valid because she's navigating something really big, but that is bringing her nervous system into a darker space with it versus like, oh, there's possible that this could go really well. Mind reading. This one's great. I already know what they're going to say. Like, I'm not going to bring this topic up. Like those of you that have bosses and you're like, I really want to ask for a raise or I want to ask for time off. I already know what they're going to say, right? Like that's fun to kind of explore that one. Jules, you know what you're thinking? Should statements, right? I should be at this stage of my life by this age, right, Neela? I should be doing this differently, or I should be doing that. I should be this, I should be that. One of the quotes that my old boss and mentor told me is that when you compare yourself, you always lower your standards. Like you think that you're trying to up yourself, like, oh, I should be like them. No, you're actually lowering your standards because the like path that you have, no one else could ever have, right? Excessive need for approval. As soon as someone feels like they see me, then I'm okay. See me. Look how destructive that could be long term. And then disqualifying the present, meaning once I get a raise or once I get this house or once this happens, then everything will be all right, right? Dwelling, meaning like looping a conversation in your head over and over, like, when you're in the shower and you're like, oh my God, I should have said this yesterday to that experience or that thing, or like I have to think about everything that's going wrong. Pessimism is just looking at things negatively, right? Glass half empty. Y'all are cracking me up. Automatic negative thoughts, meaning just repetition of the same thoughts over and over and over. And we know there's like some crazy stat about the percentage of thoughts that we have every day that's the same as the day before. That's why this type of work, you guys, is so important because it gets us out of that thought loop of what we're used to thinking, and it breaks up the pattern. Even though it's scary, it brings forward a lot of really beautiful possibility for us. The Inner Roommate. Many of you have read The Untethered Soul. If you haven't, I highly suggest it. However, if you're still in a place of processing, trauma or things like that, I would say maybe wait a little and work through that, because I picked up this book many times before I actually understood it because I wasn't ready for it. But I think this concept we can all digest. The inner roommate refers to the incessant chatter as your inner roommate and likens this roommate to the most disturbed, annoying, emotionally reactive person you've ever met. This voice can pull you away from or distract you from almost anything you're doing. It's like always going. Even when I'm talking to someone, it's going, right? The inner roommate is pretty much the cause of every problem you've ever had. This leads me to our next point, you guys. Your thoughts are never the problem. It's the way you're perceiving your thoughts. So I could have like crazy thoughts about all kinds of stuff, which I do, and I know you do too. But if I can just say, oh, that's an interesting thought, it came, and let it go, then I'm the one, my consciousness, my soul is observing what's happening versus me being wrapped up in the thought and not having the ability to like zoom out. Then I'm identifying with the thought versus de-identifying with the thought. So that inner roommate or the committee, like they're always going off up there. They always got an opinion about something. Does their opinion matter? And the truth of the matter is the answer is no. But the more I gain control over that inner opinion, the easier it is for me to decide, oh, you think that way? Let's actually go this direction instead and see what that brings into our life, what abundance, what clarity, what connection with others that will bring into our life. And y'all hit me in the chat or stop me, unmute yourself if you have something to offer or contribute. So I like to talk to the inner roommate. So it says hello, like if you literally in your mind, like right now, say hello. Hello, 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 hello. Okay, I just decided what I was gonna say. Hi, you're beautiful. Wow. Hey, you suck. You shouldn't have done that. You are not your thoughts. So like, if I can command myself in my mind's eye right now to say hello 17 times, I can also command myself in my mind to say, wow, maybe there's another way of looking at this right now. Maybe there's an ulterior option that can give me a supportive path versus this downward spiral. Because as one of my mentors shared with me and us that were in training, we're always spiraling, right? The universe, the cosmic universe is a spiral. That's what's happening. Like if you zoom out and look at our galaxy, it's a spiral. Our mind is always spiraling. Everything's always, the world is always turning. Are you spiraling upward or are you spiraling downward? And whatever affects that spiral is the tone in which you're approaching it. Self-awareness, that's the number one thing. If we're not aware, if we're not like questioning these conversations internally, we can't even catch them. We can't even be like, is this true? We can't even have those conversations when we're inside of the thought. So when it's happening, and we saw that list, all those destructive self patterns, those negative talks, all of those things are straight up right there. But if we're not aware, like, oh, I'm doing that thing again, we're in it. We're not looking at it. And so I'll explain to you guys, yes, we are programmed to think negative. Negativity bias, human beings. I don't understand why, but here we are. So identification of thoughts is when we have a thought and we say, my identity is linked to this. You guys ever heard someone say, I'm not a morning person? Right? I am. As soon as you say I am, anything that comes after the word I am, you will be. Sunny, are you okay? I love you. I am blank, right? I am, or we've talked a lot in our community with people of, I have an eating disorder, my eating disorder, right? We identify with that. Or I am not someone that can figure this out. My way of thinking or learning is like, I don't think that way. I know some people can figure that out. I don't think that way, right? And that's identifying, taking some random thought, like a thought is a thing. I'm not book smart, right? A thought is a thing. It comes in, it goes. And it's like an example that I thought was so beautiful is you could be sitting behind a waterfall. Like, let's go to freaking Hawaii right now. And you're in this little cave and the water's coming down from the waterfall. And it's all pouring down, and the water's thoughts. You can let the thoughts just go and they'll go down into this pool and then they'll dissipate and recirculate, right? But if you reach out and you like touch the water, you get wet by it, then all of a sudden that water is on you and affecting you, right? Hopefully it's not a cold day, just like freeze your butt off. Or you're sitting at a train station. This is an example that Headspace uses a lot. Sitting at a train station, you're watching the trains go by, right? One comes in, one goes out. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know where it's going, but it's definitely moving. If you choose to get on the train, you are now one with the thought. You're like, I'm going to go where you're taking me. Do you want to go to New York? Do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Like, I'm going with you. The alternative is to sit at the station with like an awesome cup of tea or coffee and just be like, wow, I wonder where they're going. That could be cool, but like I'm right here. My center is right here. So de-identifying with the thoughts and no longer owning them as who you are is the key to being successful in this conversation, this internal conversation. Ash, just want to read what you said because I think it's so important. Removing I am from I am anxious to I am experiencing anxiety right now. Look at that. Right now means there's a finite time period, right? So the finite time period means it's going to pass and you're buying into that actually passing. No stress, Sophia. Thanks for being here. And you can always watch the recording. I'll make sure you get more information on everything we covered before. So we just get to, it's crazy when we think about spirituality, you guys, because at the end of the day, the word I am is the end of the sentence. I am, period. I'm just consciousness. That's all. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not a wife, I'm not a mother, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not this, I'm not an employee of this company. Like, I just am. And the problem is culture has taught us like doing, so we don't actually get to be. And then when we get to be, it's like we're coming home again. And that's where we de-identify with our thoughts. We give ourselves spaciousness to feel. Okay, so what does witnessing look like? We talked about this in our mentorship program. If you guys see the bird all the way to the left, he's our doing bird. He's the first bird. And our doing bird is like, I'm getting in my car, I'm going here, I have this meeting at this time, and then I'm doing this, and then I have this, and I need to make sure that I pay this bill and go here and feel this and contribute to my family and all these other things. So this is like the going bird that doesn't even realize that it has thoughts. The thoughts are driving this bird. Now the second bird is the you that can zoom out of the doing and just be like, oh wow, look at all those things you're over there doing. And a lot of times that bird is the bird that we're going back and forth from in first and second bird when we're meditating. Right? So when we meditate, we're not supposed to totally shut our mind off. Actually, we fluctuate. So first you're meditating and then you're like, oh man, I forgot to move the laundry over. Oh, I'm hungry. What am I going to have for lunch? And then you're like, wait, I'm supposed to be meditating right now. Let me just observe those thoughts. Wow, that's so funny. How did I have those thoughts? Okay, let's listen to our breath. And then all of a sudden you're fluctuating between first and second bird. Now, third bird is like supreme superposition. Third bird is like watching the second bird observe the thoughts and the first bird doing all the crazy things. And fuck no, you shouldn't be in third bird all the time in your life, because then you're not associated with reality and you're going to miss out on participating as a human being, right? Because you got to go through all three. But third bird is the most amazing place to be when you need to get some perspective, when you need to like zoom out of something and stop taking things so seriously and realize that things are not happening to you, they're just happening. And you just, I am is the ultimate third bird position. I am, that's it, I just am. And I've shared with some of you that I had like, I've just been having really rough last few days with my family, feeling so triggered because sometimes we had a family meeting yesterday. And I'm like, first of all, why the fuck am I even here? Like, I'm not a part of this conversation. But just observing the first birds in all of them of this like, and I'm feeling this and I'm thinking this and you don't love me and just all this craziness of their belief systems impacting who they are and them identifying with all these thoughts. And I'm sitting there third birding it and I'm like, am I crazy? Am I like an alien? Like, how was I born into this family? Like just observing all the thoughts and then observing my own thoughts about the experience too. And it can be really interesting when you start to expand your awareness to see in your mind's eye the way that, you know, people you love operate and the interesting spiritual assignments that we have to go through in this lifetime. It's very interesting. I love this quote. My mentor always said this quote, every cell in your body is eavesdropping on your thoughts. So what I want to iterate here, you guys, this is a Chopra quote, is that your nervous system is being affected by the things you're thinking. And right now in our mentorship program, we're reading How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPera. And she talks so much about, she's got a section in the trauma body chapter where she talks about the running dialogue of the average person when they wake up and they get in the car and go to work and they got the morning things and they're stressed in traffic when they come home and they want to watch TV and eat and then pass out. And there's just like this looping cycle, is that when we're in stress, we're inflamed. Our body is secreting hormones to send inflammation through our body when we're constantly feeling stressed. And the quality of our thoughts, if the thoughts are negative or in those types that we reviewed, it's sending inflammation through our body because we're stressed about it. Whereas if the thoughts are calmer and kinder, our body doesn't have to go in fight or flight. It can feel safe. It can be like, oh, wow, you're right. Like, I am okay. But we have to remind ourselves of that, because if we don't, our thoughts are taking over, our nervous system is responding, our body is inflamed, and then ipso facto, heart problems, immunity problems, digestive problems, reproductive problems, and the list goes on. Right? So body, mind, soul connected. And so let's just pretend our cells have little baby ears and they're so cute and they're listening. Do they like what they're hearing? Do they feel seen with what they're hearing? And let's be honest, every single human being wants to be seen, loved, and understood. And you're not going to feel seen, loved, and understood if you're talking shit to yourself all day long. So catch it, catch it. That's the point. We got to catch it. So how do we change the channel? How do we change it up? This is a big one. It's like, okay, now we understand how bad it is for us. How do we shift that? So the first thing is, oh, I'm doing that thing. I'm doing that thing right now, and it's happening right now. And then all of a sudden, you are empowered to make a choice. Is that thing going to dictate my experience of reality? Or am I going to challenge this right now a little bit? Am I going to say, wow, okay, now I see it. What tools am I going to reach for and pull out and use? So here are some big little tips. We actually have this from our last webinar on emotional intelligence and navigating our reactivity. I actually find these to be techniques that work across the board for mindfulness. Number one is put your hand on your heart. You literally cannot connect with yourself or be compassionate towards yourself when you're doing this. Or rather, you cannot not connect to yourself, right? So touching your own body is like, hey, I'm right here. Most of the time when we are feeling inclined to have negative self-talk, we are not feeling kind or compassionate towards ourselves. We're being dicks. And it might be cliche to just be like, oh my God, I'm gonna put my hand on my heart. Oh, like it actually works. It's a nervous system response. I am right here. I'm validating myself through this experience of reality for myself right now. And then the next thing is to shift your focus. Like pause, okay? Put a little space between, like, wow, don't talk to my friend like that. That's always the one I love, is like, you would say that if someone was talking about someone you loved in the way that you talk to yourself, you'd be like, don't talk to my friend like that. Say that to your inner roommate. Do not talk to my friend like that. Let's put a little space between stimulus and response. I love that, Bobby. Sylvia's great at checking you on being nice to yourself. Good. And then here's a really good one. You guys get curious. What's coming up for me right now? Like, why in the world is this the thought that I chose? When you put a question mark next to it, you leave room for an answer. So instead of the statement, I'm not enough, period, it's, I wonder why I'm feeling as if I'm not enough. What could be under that? Then you wait. And within that comes things. When you ask questions, you get answers. So have a quality question of what is coming up beneath this? Why is this something I'm choosing? Then I love, love, love the STOP acronym. S is stop, T, take a breath. Observe. Wow, this is interesting. And maybe you can put in that questioning in there. And then proceed, right? Because I've at least paused and given myself a little bit of space. And then I love this one, invite humor into your experience. Like when I'm super hard on myself, I'll literally take that thought and put like a bikini on it and like put it in the middle of the freaking ocean, like sunburning and toasting, and then have like a big dude like belly flop right next to me on a boat or something. Like just put some humor around this like crazy thought that you're thinking about yourself. Because even if right now or in that moment, that's the reality of what you're choosing to speak to yourself with, when you add humor, it lightens and it uplifts some of that kind of density around the negative self-talk, and it gives a little space. Okay, you guys, this is a huge one. This pulled me out of so much of my shit for so long. It's a model of The Work by Byron Katie. If you know Byron Katie, she's been around for many, many years, and she has 4 questions that she implements, and she's got many books on this. When you have a thought, I'm not good enough, or let's just use I'm not good enough since a lot of us have that. Is it true? And maybe the first time you say, yeah, it's true. Right now, it's true for me. Now, number 2 is, can you absolutely know that it's true? Well, absolutely. I don't know. Like, maybe there's evidence in certain areas of my life that I am good enough. Maybe I don't feel good enough here, but like, is that a blanket statement that absolutely is like the absolute truth? Maybe not, right? Number 3, how do you react when you believe that thought? Like, what do you feel when you believe that? And you guys can put in the chat right now, like, when you believe I'm not good enough, what do you feel? Probably worthless, incapable, stupid, unworthy, shame. What else do you feel? When you believe, when you actually in your soul believe, like, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this. Fear. What else? Anything else? I'm not good enough. What do you feel when you believe, when you're truthfully believing that thought? Sad. Sadness. Fake. Yeah. Garbage. Like, holy shit. We just zoom out on this moment right now and like recognize that that's a lie that I'm believing, and look what results out of that lie. And this is, you know, it's a self process, but having these questions written out is a really helpful tool. And number 4, who would you be without that thought? If I'm not good enough did not exist, what are the actions you'd take, the thoughts you'd have, the ways you'd feel? What risks would you lean into? How would you show up in your relationships? Who would you be if you didn't believe I'm not good enough? Who would you be? And that's more of my true self. Yeah. Whole. So much in that, because when you solidify a thought and you're like, this negative thought is my belief system right now, and then you start to ask questions, it's almost like you're poking the bear. You're like taking these little like pieces of you know, like sticks, and like poking at this balloon until strong. I love that. Until it starts to wither away, and you're shaking up the framework of that thought. And instead of that thought being a solid foundation of something you're buying into, you're like, wow, like, this is a freaking house of cards. And I'm ready and willing to like collapse this house of cards right now, because it's actually not reality. And that is the power of something like this specific technique. So we recognize that actually all thoughts are the house of cards. What about the times when it is true? Is it ever true? Is it ever true that you're not good enough? Give me an example, Sunny. Like, when is it ever really true?
Okay, well, I mean, for me specifically, it's relating to work. Like, I'm not good enough to build a company that's like IPOable, for example. And then I start to think like, well, I don't have XYZ skill sets. And then when I break down those skill sets, I'm like, yeah, it's true. I don't have some of these skill sets. So let me work on them and gain those skill sets so I can move forward. I'm like, yeah, when I break it down like that, I feel better. But I feel like I wanted to ask you, because you have a way of saying things that land with me better than I say to myself. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, so what is happening here is you're making it equivalent. You're saying good enough means I have skills that I don't have. And you're putting so much pressure on yourself to be literally everything, and no one is everything, because no one is you. So what you have, no one else has. The ability you have to execute on rebuilding the business or whatever it is that you're working on right now, like whatever direction you're going, no one has what you have. No one has the vision you have, the passion you have, and the skills you have to do that. And I always remind you that, like, I like hiring people and working with people that are smarter than me, because I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I want you to come in and I want to pay you so that you can do that, because I believe in your skill and your ability to do that. But as Ray said in there, skill is not worth, right? So the good enoughness is like, what are we talking about when we say good enough? Because like, if we talk about worthiness as a human, every single human being is worthy of being loved, is worthy of adding value to the world, is worthy of being seen, acknowledged. Like, you're literally a drop in the ocean of like God, and the whole ocean is God, or universe, or divinity, or whatever you want to place in place of that makes sense for your belief system. So good enough being confused with like some work conversation of skill set, like I'm this might be a living belief or negative thought. Like, I suck at like things like math, and I hate organization. Like, yes, could I get good at that? I could put my head down and I could bust my ass and I could get really good at that. But that's not my genius zone. I don't give a fuck about that. Like, I want to be in my genius zone so I can bring to the world the light that I know the world needs from me. But if I'm sitting wasting my resources on getting strong at something I'm not good at, I am good enough to do that if I wanted to, but I don't want to, right? And nor should you, because you are so brilliant in your own way. And like, when we stay in the zone of what we're brilliant at, we flourish. Like, we've all got a purpose, we've all got a path. And when we try to divert from the path, it's like swimming upstream. Like, I don't want to waste my energy swimming upstream. I want to waste my energy giving and exploring and flourishing, and then paying other people to do the thing that they're good at so they can also have that. And that's actually how we uplift the world, not by like feeling like we have to do their job. It's by empowering them to do their job so we can all cohese in harmony and work together. I hope that's helpful. Yeah. So reframing is our next technique that we're going to talk about with negative self-talk, is taking the thought and just looking at it. So if I'm looking at it through like this frame, like a square, I'm going to instead look at it through a circle. Or I'm going to do this like ridiculous silly thing I always do when I'm drinking, is make little goggles, superhuman goggles, right? I'm going to look at it through a different frame of mind so that I can see something from another perspective that isn't damaging or creating self-harm. Because when I'm in harm, I can't operate in my best self. So why create harm when I can just pull the lens off and put a different one on? And that's essentially what reframing is. It's taking something and pulling, like, you guys that maybe hang art, or like literally behind me, there's like a bunch of frames. There's this one's black. We could literally take it off and put a white one on instead. And all of a sudden the entire image of the picture would look different. The feel of the picture would look different. Okay. So here's some specifics. The thought could be, I've never done it before. Right? Like, I've never done this shit before. We have a new opportunity to learn. And the I've never done it before doesn't mean necessarily that you have to figure out how to do it, but maybe you're learning how to do it differently, or show up differently, or speak to yourself differently. Next, it's too complicated, right? I love that one. That one's one I say a lot. So rude. I'll tackle it from a different angle, right? Like, maybe there's a different way that I can kind of figure this out. Like, shit's complex. Like, y'all, relationships are so complex. Like, intimate relationships are like the craziest thing I've ever experienced. I'm like, why is this so hard? This is so complicated, because you have two humans, deeply intimate, deeply vulnerable, and you're supposed to share like everything that you're supposed to share with the other person. And you're like, I don't even know myself enough to be able to give you what you're actually asking of me. And this is like all my traumas coming up and your traumas coming up, and we're playing it out in this relationship. And we're not even speaking the same language anymore because my trauma is fighting with your trauma. Like, relationships are complicated. I'll tackle it from a different angle. And for example, over the last 8 years, I've been tackling it from a different angle with my partner. And we had to change our approach. And literally, y'all, not even like last year did we figure out the right way to tackle it for us right now, right? So 7 years in, and we barely even realized to like get along in a room. And then now, like, we're still changing our approach, and it's giving us resources instead of like, this is too complex. I think another man would be better for me because he wouldn't do this, this, and this, and that. Like, isn't that always the excuse? Like, I could find a partner that would be better for me because they wouldn't have these qualities that you have. Like, craziness, right? Like, we can't sit in uncomfortability and work through a problem. It's like window shopping, right? It's like the immediacy, the culture of immediacy. Like, I'm on to the next thing, I'm on to the next thing. That robs our ability to build character. Like, we can't build character if we're just on to the next thing. I don't have the resources. I will find things I otherwise wouldn't when I become resourceful. I love this one so much because I suck if I don't have a deadline. Like if I don't have like a goal right in front of me that I'm moving towards, I have a really hard time staying motivated. But if you give me a deadline, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to like do everything I need to do to make it happen. And I'm going to pull from here and I'm going to pull from there and I'm going to get scrappy. Right. So how do we utilize something like when I'm on my knees, I see things I don't see when I'm standing upright. I will find the resources to make it happen. That's the reframe on that one. There's no way it will work. What are the ways we can figure this out? Think about the energetic vibration of those two thoughts. So different. Yeah, scrappy. One of my like when I was working at WeWork, we had like this regional conference and like one of the like huge managers of the whole country came up to me and he's like, define scrappy for me. And I was like, me. And he was like, oh, I like you. It was fun. It was a fun moment in my career. I'm just not good at this type of thing. How can I be more patient with myself? How can I be more patient? Oh, I can be gentle. I can change my self-talk. I can take a bubble bath, which we all know doesn't do much if your mind's not right anyway. Here's a sweet image I like to reframe. It's like change it, literally change it. We have the power. It's when we decide that we don't have the power that all of our cells are like, cool, we don't have the power. Let's go with that. Like, I'm going to go with whatever you say. Let's do it. So you have to say something different to yourself. Okay, so let's talk about ongoing maintenance work because in the moment, catching yourself, asking the 4 series questions like the work, and then reframing, that will not happen if you don't have a baseline. Like, for example, if you're not taking care of yourself on a daily basis, mentally and emotionally, you probably won't have access to those resources. Okay. And here's how you do it. Self-esteem work, right? You want to build your self-esteem so that when negative thoughts come up, you don't believe them automatically because your worth, your esteem has been strengthened, your confidence within yourself. Mel Robbins high five. She has this thing where she says, high five yourself in the mirror every day. Because what that does, what that does is like so physical movement. It's like a physiological, good job. I see you. Congratulations. I'm on your side. I'm with you. Let's do this. So if you high five yourself in the mirror every day, she did a bunch of like scientific research studies of how that's affected people's entire self-esteem, self-worth, and being throughout the days to actually just do that. And it might sound silly, but it makes a huge difference. Like, go team, I'm on your side. Like, doesn't it make sense that that would build your self-esteem? Like, yes, I'm on my side. I'm my own biggest ally and my own biggest enemy. And I'm going to lean into ally by just, it's so simple and so ridiculous. But, yeah. Okay, and the next is congratulating and acknowledging yourself often. Like, wow, that was really challenging, but I see that you got through that. Look at everything you've done in your life so far. Look at how far you've come. Do you remember yourself even a year ago? Wow. Like, I just want to pause. And I feel so grateful because I have a lot of friends and mentors that do this for me because I'm really not great at this because I'm always on to the next thing. But they're like, hey, I just want to remind you like what you just did. I want to remind you of who you are. I want to remind you of how beautiful this is. And, you know, like to not compare yourself because again, like this is incredible what you've created, right? Taking care of yourself and resting when necessary. I think those go hand in hand. Is taking care of yourself is not just like taking bubble baths and face masks. It's genuinely eating well, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, knowing when you're feeling like you're on the edge of burnout and instead of like showing up harder, like actually pausing and resting, right? Like nourishing yourself. And then I put self boundaries specifically because a lot of us think boundaries mean like the way we operate with others. It's actually the way we operate with ourselves. And self boundaries are like, no, I'm not going to let myself do this right now. I'm not going to put myself through this. Right? It's like I'm setting a boundary with my own self. And then self accountability. If I said I'm going to do something, I'm going to show up to it because guess what? Self accountability, a word, is strengthening the trust you have within you. And when you trust yourself, it's so much easier to catch yourself in those negative thought patterns. Meditation, you guys know, like this is my go-to medicine of my life. And this is every single time I work one-on-one coaching with people, or if someone comes to me and they're like, blah, 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 I'm navigating this. My question is usually like, do you meditate regularly? Like, that's it. Because if that box is not something that you check as a conditioned commitment you've made, it's very challenging to be self-aware and to have that confidence piece and to get out of the looping negative thoughts. So when you meditate, it teaches us healthy confrontation, meaning I'm gonna be with myself. I'm not gonna leave. It teaches us patience, right? I'm not going anywhere. I'm just gonna like allow myself to have this process. And then compassion, so we can learn to be kinder towards ourselves, right? Meditation is the number one thing that's helped me. And I know it's easy to make it sound like it's a big commitment and like a huge thing. Like, I don't have time. Like, that's like hilarious. Like, you have 5 minutes. Every morning, wake up, set a timer, and sit up in bed and breathe. Like, that's it. I mean, we do live meditations every single day on my platform. Like, hop on Zoom. And if you can't make a live, there's recordings. Like, there's no excuse. Like, look at YouTube. There's so many different ways that you can resource yourself with this practice. But if negative thought patterns or self-talk is something that you struggle with and you don't have a practice, like, that's exactly where I'd point you first. Please just like start there. That's the place to start. And lead with love. I find sometimes taking the focus off ourselves when we're in a negative or dark space is helpful, just to be of service, to give and to offer, because when you offer kindness or love towards someone else, it has to flow through you first. So allowing that to flow through you, even if it's a way of showing up and offering to someone else, you having that experience shifts your focus out of the directness of like, God, why can't I stop thinking about this? It's like, let's just move our attention into a loving space somewhere else. Let me do something for someone. And then ongoing maintenance is also like practices like yoga and meditation support us in getting to know ourselves more, right? Just being present with ourselves more. And then we have the opportunity to develop a loving voice inwardly. And so yoga practice, physical movement, just kind of shifting your energy here. I had a really beautiful experience this morning when I taught class. The first student that was here, this really sweet gentleman, we were just talking a little, and he told me he was an actor, and he said that he just had to submit an audition reel today. And he's like, it was crazy because the role that I was auditioning for was very emotional. And I was kicking myself because when I was doing it, it was really hard for me to bring that forward. And I realized that even though I've had access to my emotions in the past, now at this period of my life, like for some reason in the last year or so, I've kind of put up a wall into my own emotions. And doing that reel showed me how hard it was to access that for myself, even if it was acting it. And I was like, oh my God, like, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Like, I don't even know you. And like, that was really beautiful, you know? And he, you know, continued to talk with me and to share with me, and that he's been doing yoga every single day, and that it's been changing that aspect for him. And so getting closer to himself, knowing himself more, and giving himself permission to access that deeper truth has been, you know, his pathway to his emotional body. And that's really where we can kick our negative self-talk in the boot. Okay, so you guys, a lot of the stuff we're talking about, just for those ladies on the call, is these are things we're going to be covering in my next local retreat. It's in Santa Monica at Unplugged Meditation at the end of June. And it's called Woman Resilience. It's all about building our thick skin as women to stay in our femininity and our gentleness and our love, but also to be able to operate in the world with resources, like ass-kicking resources. So if really growing and knowing yourself more live in the room, in person, is something you're interested in, you can reach out to us or my team. It's all on the website if you guys want to join. It's a really amazing program. Our last one was incredible. I actually just posted the full video on my Instagram. So if you want to see a little more about how that works, it's definitely pretty deep and profound. So I would love to just stop screen share and take a second and just look at you guys. You guys, if you want to go gallery mode, you can. I would love to hear any of your aha moments, your thoughts, your feedback on today. If anything spoke to you that you want to claim publicly in the space, so that you can be a little more accountable towards that. Feel free to just unmute yourself and share. I see all your wheels turning so hard right now. It's great.
Hi, I'll share.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm glad that we did this today for several reasons. One of them that's like really coming up for me is I've been struggling with like the transition of teacher training to like where I want to go next, how I want to plan my class out. And then I was really struggling with like being super hard on myself about like timing and when I do it. And I feel like, oh, I should already be doing this. And it's like, I took a lot of time this week to like map out realistically, like the timeline. It was so interesting of like how much kinder I could be to myself on paper and use the tools versus in the moment. So kind of almost like a third birding it on paper of seeing like, okay, this is what I want and this is totally obtainable and I can totally do this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to happen right now. So by zooming out, it's like, okay, so what can I do to strengthen in the next 3 months the person that wants to do that? Because for me, like, I struggle with like, oh God, you're not there yet. You're not there yet. No, you're not there yet. That's okay. But you're getting there. And patience for me, as you know, is a fun challenge as I change that from struggle. So it felt good with this and in combination with the reading and awesome community of just like, it's okay. Again, it's not a race, it's a journey. And as long as I'm doing the steps, it doesn't need to happen like next month. So yeah, that was my thoughts.
I love that. That's so beautiful because it's like who are we even competing with? Like what timeline, who set what timeline for us? And like, while it's important to do shit that scares us and like makes us feel alive, not before we're ready in a space that makes us feel resentful. Right. So it's like that push and pull of listening to your inner voice through the committee, not the inner roommate, the inner voice, the deeper part of you, the soul part of you that actually knows like, when is it time to jump? Right. Not if it's disappointing versus if it scares you. Like there's kind of two little places we teeter totter between, you know? Anyone else want to share? We have time for one more. Jump in. Okay. Well, I know you guys have again bills turning up there, and I am so excited.
Okay, fine. Hold on. I'll share.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the biggest thing for me that I've been like, I mean, I'm trying to like get through it, I guess, but it's since I've gotten pregnant, I've had all these thoughts about like the damage I've done to my body in the past. Regardless of how like healthy I thought I was now, it was about like the ramifications of like long-term drug use and in the body. And then Robert's sister made a comment and just like natural, like I got in my head like, oh, well, what if something does happen, or, you know, and it's just, you know, and it's just thoughts that I have to remember, like they're not true. I've done a lot to change, like I'm so much, and it's just it still kind of like sneaks back up, and it never was an issue before being pregnant. Now it's like another life is in the situation, and it's feeling like helpless and just like hoping that nothing I've done in the past is gonna affect her.
Yeah. And that's very a real, valid feeling. And I just want to honor you where you're at and like tell you that you're going to be such an amazing mother because of this experience you're having right now to actually be that concerned about something like that. And as we know, we have no control of where we came from. We can only control where we're going. And where you're going is something so powerful, and where you are is so powerful. And, you know, like, as you know, like God would not have given you a child if you were not supposed to be a mother. And you know that in your soul.
No, I do know that. And I mean, hey, there's people using all over the place, getting pregnant and having babies, and like nothing's wrong. So it's like being realistic at the same time. Yeah, there are ones with concerns, but it happens every day where like people I know that like I worked with in treatment, that like I saw them have babies and the drug test was positive. So, you know, it's just, it's just like accepting it and knowing that, because like I can know God doesn't make mistakes, and I can know that in my heart, but like the hormones and emotions are like fluctuating. I watched a commercial that made me cry. Like it's like it's so up and down, and I'm not generally like a big crier when it comes to TV. I'm like mostly always happy, and this I haven't been. Like it's hard. So it's just fluctuating through those emotions and knowing that even though I'm sad, I'm not sad because I did something. I'm sad just because hormones, like it's just life. So
I love too with you just giving yourself the space to like have that experience. Like, this is something that I'm not in control of right now, so I'm going to allow myself to feel. And it's beautiful. It's softening you as a woman. It's putting you more in touch with your femininity. Like, we emote. So like, look at all the years you didn't let yourself emote. Now you get to have that. Damn, I love you guys. You're the best. Well, thank you all so much for being here and giving me your precious time. I know that that's your biggest asset that you have right now. So I love this space with you, and thank you for being vulnerable and your contributions in the chat. If you guys have any questions or feedback or anything about this further, please totally reach out. I'm happy to be a resource. My team's here too. And I would love to see you guys for Woman Resilience. And otherwise, I'll see you soon. And just a sweet reminder, if you are in the LA area, we got a really big event next Friday night. It's called Level Up Ground Down, and it's a boot camp with Koopa James and then a sound bath with me at Maverick in Playa Vista. And on Sunday, we've got a workshop on Zoom with Katie Moran from our leadership team on body image and food. So please feel free to attend that. I'm happy to guest you guys in. And otherwise, yeah, see you soon. Love you.